Hello and welcome to another geopolitical analysis video. Please like and subscribe today's video and support the channel. Comment below. I'd also like to remind you that we're sponsored by Olympus Aroma, where you can find one of the best artisanal Greek products from the lush fields of Olympus. Namely, oregano oil has done wonders for me and my family. It's cultivated in wild organic fields without the use of pesticides or chemicals, does wonders to your immune system. There's been incredible reports from scientific journals on the antiviral and anti-cancerous properties. So take advantage of their free shipping worldwide. Now, back to the news of this week. OPEC announces 2 million barrels cut per day. One may say, hey, it's not much of a cut because our consumption is 100 millions per barrel per day. 100 million barrels per day is estimated the global consumption. In this case, we are seeing OPEC versus Biden. And one of the things I've talked in my previous video is the Biden administration has done everything since the first day to position itself against the oil cartels. A lot of people will say, well, yeah, let's fight the oil dynasties and what they're doing with the world. They're destroying the world. But we're forgetting that 3,000 products depend on oil. Our entire civilization, whether we like it or not, is undoubtedly tethered to hydrocarbons. Now, natural gas is something that we've seen the green energy elite can't really talk against because it's one of the cleanest fuels and one of the most efficient. But the problem is not that. The problem is that we, from the first day, let's go back, the first day of the Biden administration, what did he do? He signed the Paris Accord. Now, the Paris Accord was all about the climate action and all the net zero carbon emission policies that will follow since 2025, leading to 2030. It's quite ironic because you would think that the US, the Biden administration, would try to save itself and go back to fracking, go back to the Keystone Pipeline developments. But no, we've seen that it's pushed so hard for the green energy that the world is not ready to adapt to that shift, but only we're seeing that it's an uphill battle because it's not feasible. So you might say, well, the OPEC countries have adopted a lot of these policies. Like we know Saudi Arabia is going hard in the paint for hydrogen and for other renewables in the coming years. But yes, the prices that OPEC desires is around the 80, 90, 100 range, ideally. The range that Putin wants to see is well above the $100 per barrel range. But the administration of Biden desires that lower 60s, maybe 70s per barrel, because we know the sentiment, the American sentiment of the consumer is tethered to the US barrel price. And if the administration is doing everything but to push back on that, we're going to see that there are going to be ramifications for the administration of Biden. Now, there's a war going on. There's a war between OPEC, Biden, and of course, we're seeing the alignment of interests, of common interests of Russia and OPEC in this. And it's quite interesting to look at because Russia desires high prices in order to sustain its war, which we've all witnessed since February. That's not a war, right? This is a wear and tear. It's been going on for several months now. And a lot of people are assuming that this will go up throughout the entire of the next year as well. And also the supply shock. We've seen problems with developments around the world like Kazakhstan. We've seen a decrease in its output. We've seen problems with Libya because of the crisis. We've seen millions of barrels just disappear from the market. All of that compounded with the staff protests that were happening in the last few months. We came off from the COVID lockdowns in the West, only for the East to have this similar lockdown effects, hard lockdown effects in one of the largest production centers of China. Having that now dissipate and go back to reality, well, their consumption is going to go up as well. So China now is going to repurchase a lot of those oil barrels that were really floating in the market and allowed that price to go down. So all in all, we're seeing that in this case, the commodity countries, the nations that we've talked about in the East, are winning against the Western country nations, such as like the UK, the Euro, and the US. Of course, all of the currencies are tethered to the US. So seeing now the Fed increase its interest rates and of course try to create that liquidity crunch. We know that there are more than $300 billion missing from the emerging markets. And what that does is it actually exports recession. They are trying to save their own currencies by selling American bonds, selling USD, and repurchasing their own. Where do we see this? We saw that in Japan. The Bank of Japan did this recently, where they sold some of the excess of US dollars in order to save their own currency. And this is the beginning of the collapse that has been discussed by incredible analysts such as Jim Rickards, Harry Dent, and many others who have been calling for this to happen for some time now. We see this cognitive dissonance coming from England, where from one end you're seeing interest rates hike, liquidity crunch, and then you're seeing the supply by the Treasury in order to save the pensions, because of course pension funds were highly leveraged. So this whole scheme, everything has become a Ponzi scheme in this fiat world. And that is why the East is pushing back on this fiat paper currencies. And they're desiring to go back to a basket of commodities like we've discussed with BRICS and many other nations to do business with something that is stable. If somebody would go back to the gold standard, we'd see that the gold standard really pushed for nations to really fix their house, to really like fix up all their trade deficits and just make sure that things are clear from a financial aspect. That's why certain countries, when they would have excess of gold, you'd see that they at some point they would export that, and then it would come back in trade. So you see that gold was something that would actually create this equilibrium between countries and would have steady growth. But in this financial world where everything is created by credit, all of our growth is relying on credit, and that is being taken away. So we're seeing that is having detrimental effects to the West. One might say the US dollar is still the dominant currency. Yes, but how long? Because we're seeing nations are cutting down on that. But back to OPEC, this is very exciting because we've seen in the markets an increase, an uptick to $90 per barrel. And we are entering in 2 months in the wintertime where the consumption of oil is increasing, of course, and natural gas and all these commodities that we require in order to heat up our homes, for transportation. So these months are the heavy months of consumption, as long as the months of the summer. So it will be very, very interesting to see. And we got to watch out those prices, because it's showing again that inflation is not going anywhere. And as a result, all these federal banks will have to increase interest rates much further and cause a recession. This is something that is not going to be fixed in a few months. This might require a few years in order to go back to lower inflationary period. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe. Comment below about your thoughts on this. What do you think? Do you think that OPEC is against the US? Do you think that that Russia and OPEC's interests are aligning in this? I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on this. And again, one might say that the OPEC is avenging the Fed, the US, because of the increase of interest rates. And of course, signing that Paris Accord since the first day of Biden's administration has set the tone, has set the actual focus of where the US is going. So please comment below, because it's very interesting. Trump administration bought those oil barrel reserves that right now the US is talking about supplying back to the market, one of its strategic reserves, and is considering repurchasing that back in the zone right now. So we're seeing a lot of developments here in the energy sphere, and the crisis is still going on strong. One more interesting point I want to bring up is that Africa has seen tremendous developments, especially in the Saharan and Nigerian region. And one might think that Europe is going to start opening up to more African oil and natural gas. This is something we must take into effect. So please like and subscribe to this video, share your comments below, and also in the description of the video, you will find the link for Olympus Aroma. Thanks so much. Bye for now.